So I'd like to welcome Vanessa Whyte.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us. Vanessa is a DOP who's worked on a number of acclaimed shorts, including the BAFTA-winning Operator, as well as camera work on a number of hit TV shows, including Fortitude and Broadchurch. So welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. Do you want to tell us how you kind of got the film bug?
I think I wanted to be a DOP from about the age of 15, 16, but I got convinced by my father to go to university and do an academic degree. So I spent 3 years doing art history, and then I left university and decided I still wanted to be a DOP. I tried very hard to get camera trainee jobs and did not manage to get anybody to take me on. So I ended up taking on any job that I could find. I was a runner, edit assistant, accounts assistant, just literally anything I could take, and I ended up in production. My first paid work as a camera operator was actually at the company where I worked as a production assistant, shooting live gigs. I used to do lots of festival coverage at Festival and Isle of Wight, and you run around with a camera on your own. You've got a tripod in one hand, camera in the other, and you're just running around in the mud filming gigs as like part of a multi-camera crew. So it was probably my first paid job. But probably my first big job was the second unit DP on a film called Get Santa with Christopher Ross, BSc, and he very kindly took me on board when I probably had very few credits, and took me on that film, and it was really nice. I came for a couple of days and I ended up staying for pretty much the whole shoot.
What do you think are the benefits of working on shorts?
Shorts are a great way to like learn how to shoot a scene and work with actors, work with directors to build a narrative arc that covers more than just 3 minutes of a music video. The other thing that's great is that you get to meet other directors, and you need to build a reel to show your work to other people. There's a lot of support out there for short filmmakers. You know, even if it's just rental houses agreeing to lend you a camera over the weekend, people are generally really happy to help. So if you want to try something new or try a new camera, that's a brilliant place to do it. You know, it's quite difficult to try and experiment on, you know, TV drama where you've got a very tight schedule and you have many pages to shoot a day. You can't say, oh, you know, I've heard of this lens, can I try it out? It's just not going to happen. So shorts are really good for that. The usual challenge is finding good crew who are going to work for you for either for free or for a very small rate. And even though usually people are amenable to it, there's an understanding in the industry that if somebody gets a paid job or a commercial, they'll just leave. So you might be all ready to shoot a short and your gaffer calls you up at 11 o'clock the night before and go, I'm really sorry, I'm not coming tomorrow, I've got a commercial. And then you have to you either end up do it yourself or you find somebody at last minute. So that's a very common problem in shorts, that your crew that you think you have are not the crew that you get.
And as the DOP on a short, how do you go about providing kind of visual instruction and kind of direction to the other departments?
I would do a mood board for project, and the director might do one as well or might not, and I'll send it to the director and see what they think. The production designer might also do one, and we will go backwards and forwards, like sharing ideas and references. Quite often what I'll do is I'll go to the location with the director and we'll take photos. Like for Operator, for instance, we went to the location, I took photos of the desk and had the director sit in, and we did 50 different pictures of different compositions and stuff, and decided how we were going to cover it. So we were very specific on that film how we were going to do it, because we knew it was just going to be one person at a desk. Often if you've got a scene with lots of people, you don't really know how it's going to play out until you see it rehearsed. So it's kind of can be hard to plan.
As the DOP, like, who are the key people that you feel that you need to have within your camera crew?
I think the focus puller is probably the most important person, and your gaffer, if there's lighting. I mean, often on shorts, or less so on shorts, but sometimes people will say, oh, you know, we'll just get a spark, or just get like this runner to help you do the lighting. But actually what that means is that you'll end up doing it yourself, and you won't necessarily have enough time to talk to the director or to think about what you're trying to do creatively.
Do you have any kind of tips for shooting with a low budget? So any lighting tips that you've kind of learned over the years, or any kind of tricks of the trade?
It's really important to try and, you know, really think about what are your essentials. So, you know, try and take your essentials plus a spare or two. Don't go crazy. You're not going to need 25 lights in this day interior scene. Equally, it's kind of easier to have fewer bigger lights than lots of small ones because, you know, usually you're trying to emulate something like daylight or the sun, which is only one source. If you put 10 lights up in a room, you're going to have 10 shadows. Also thinking about how, you know, what is happening on that in the location at that time. So is it a south-facing window? Is it north-facing window? Do you want the sun to come in, or are you going to have to block it out? Things like textiles, so having blackouts or having muslin or net curtains can be really helpful just to control the light. Yeah, I think it's really important to go to the location, try and go at the time of day that you're probably going to be there when you're filming, have a look at what the sun is doing, learn about how much power you can stick in someone's house because you don't want to blow any fuses. Things like mirrors, just any odd tricks that you can do to try and reduce the amount of lights and stands on set is quite useful because then the actors can have more space.
In relation to that, do you think as a DOP starting out, there are any kind of essential kits options that
I'm
you
very
should have,
nervous about
like,
telling
own?
people to buy stuff
Right.
because I don't think it's necessarily the right approach. I also think people can spend all this money and it might not pay off for them. But having said that, I do think everyone should have a camera. You need the ability to take stills and you need the ability to do some video, even if it's on your phone, like so that you can plan shots or do like a video test of something, or you've seen a location, you need to take photos of it. If you can afford a nice camera, a small one that means that you can shoot your own thing, put stuff online and show people your work, that's always going to be great. And if it means that you can spend a weekend shooting with your mates and make a little film, that's also great. Having said that, don't let it put you off because people will lend you cameras if you can work around their times, or you can get it on a weekend and you're happy to take whatever's on the shelf and you're not going to be precious about the fact that you need an Alexa or you need a Red, then people will lend you stuff. So I think don't be afraid to ask to borrow.
Willow Senior asks, has your art history degree influenced your job as a DOP at all, or do you find your MA more useful?
I would definitely say my MA was more useful simply because it was 2 years of practical shooting and lighting every day. Also, the way the National Film School work is that in your cinematography class, one of you will be DOP that day and the rest of you will assist. So you might be sparking or you might be camera assisting. So you get to learn all these other things and watch someone else light in a way that I wouldn't light a room. So you can see how other people approach a scene. So that's great. And also you're meeting directors and editors and composers and all these different people. So, you know, in terms of practically, my MA was much more useful.
Diego Velasco Gil asks, what's the first thing that you'd prioritise, camera, lens or light?
If you get a beautiful cinema lens, or if you get an anamorphic lens and stick it on a tiny camera, it's still going to look amazing. And I think that if you put a cheap lens on a really beautiful camera, it's still going to look rubbish. So maybe maybe it's lenses.
It's lenses.
Interesting, and also they're the most expensive, annoyingly, things to hire.
Do you think up-and-coming DOPs should be trying to learn how to shoot in film or just keep it digital?
I think if you get the opportunity to shoot on film, that is great. That knowledge is never going to be wasted. But in reality, I very rarely get a chance to shoot on film these days. Shooting stills on film is just as useful because it's the same film and you can get it developed and learn about it in that sense, and it's much, much cheaper and you can do it on your own rather than having to sort of find a 16mm camera from somewhere and borrow it and light it. But yeah, it is useful. I can't say that it isn't, but I just don't get hung up on it. The likelihood of getting a chance to actually do a job on it is pretty slim.
Would you recommend the traditional route of coming up through like the camera department as a trainee, AC, camera op, or do you think there's another way of, you know, kind of getting into?
Well, yeah, obviously I didn't do that at all, and the reason I didn't is because I'm really impatient and I just couldn't be bothered to spend, you know, however many years learning to do all the jobs in the camera assist department before I was a DP. I mean, what I would say is that those jobs, being a clapper loader and then being a focus puller, are really skilled, difficult jobs. Then, you know, of course, people climb up the ladder that way and it's a stepping stone. But to be a really, really good focus puller, it takes years and years and years of training, and it's really, really hard work. So if you don't want to be a focus puller and you can't bear the idea of doing those hours and like being that technical person and not being a creative person working with director, then don't do it. Yeah, I mean, it's up to everybody. There's different, you know, horses for courses, but I was too impatient to do it.
And finally, do you want to, obviously, I don't know if the viewers know this, but Vanessa is one of the co-creators of Illuminatrix, which is an amazing website that kind of promotes female DOPs. But you mentioned earlier that you're starting.
So we are starting, and it's not quite ready yet, but it will be very soon. We're starting am I looking at a camera?
You can look at the camera.
We are starting a web page for young, up-and-coming, emerging female cinematographers who we want to showcase their work on our website, which will be called Illuminatrix Rising. So if you would like to send your work in, please get in touch with us. The email address is
that one,
illuminatrixrising@gmail.com. So it's ILLUMINATRIX rising@gmail.com. So yeah, hopefully we'll showcase lots of young, not necessarily young, new and emerging female talent.
Awesome.